Shit. That's another thing to note. This is always hot. Your trigger no longer energizes it. So I was thinking, and I know that can be kind of dangerous sometimes, but I used to work at this shop, and the welding machines that they had were like a power source, a big giant box, and then it had leads connecting to a wire feeder that was divorced from the main machine, unlike a MIG welder where it's all in one piece. Now, I know they probably do that for convenience and portability, but it made me think, and I'm going to use transformer welders for an example because they're just simpler. An inverter welder is very, very similar, just inverts the power, whatever, does it with a different device essentially internally. So inverter welders are newer, but I'm talking about transformer welders specifically, and I'll get more into that as I go. But a transformer welder, essentially, you take the power from your house, say 240, goes into a transformer, converts that probably somewhere between 80 to 100 volts, and then you have an adjustment to get the amperage right. It's usually just like a variable potentiometer or whatever. Something like this. So it changes the resistance so that your output is different. That way you can set your amperage to whatever rod size you have or whatever material you're working with. Now, that's also how a MIG welder works. That's from a stick welder, but a MIG welder works the same. And so does a TIG welder. So does a spot welder, but I mean, again, they're all essentially the same thing. Now, a MIG welder, obviously you add features like a wire feed, but as far as the actual striking of an arc goes, it's the same device doing it. Which got me thinking about different types of welders and how much they cost and this and that. I've noticed that it's probably the cheapest route to go to get a 240 stick welder. Stick welding's a little bit difficult, but it's not difficult. The learning curve's a little, I'd say, higher. The vast majority of people can pick up a wire feed welder and lay a functional bead with it. It's very, very easy. It does most of the work for you. All you gotta do is move your hand and kind of read the puddle a little bit. I mean, it's not gonna be great right out the jump, but you can get good at it very, very quickly. Stick welding takes a little more time. So I was thinking a 110 wire feeder is very limited in what it can do. So my theory was, what if I took a 240 stick welder and used that as a power source for a pre-existing 110 wire feed welder? Is this dangerous? Probably. I can't think of any reason why this won't work though, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot. Stay tuned. Now this machine is a Hobart Handler 140, yeah, 140, so it's a 110 machine, only has a 110 plug, there's no 240 option. But I'm gonna kind of make my own 240 volt option. So, things we're using from this is just the whip. Don't need anything else. Now, to get this thing set up, and again, this isn't like a procedure, this is just me kind of brainstorming, thinking about how this is going to work, because I know how those two-piece machines work. So, in this case, I have an aluminum drive roll. I could just clamp it straight to that, but I'm going to go ahead and unbolt it from here and just clamp it straight to that lead coming out, because that just seems safer, and it's going to disconnect it from anything else other than the wire feeder circuit. I'm basically just removing one power source and hooking it to another. Now, with this thing hanging out here, ideally in a safe place, go ahead and throw this bolt back on. Now this is what energizes the wire feed assembly, and that basically gives you the power side or the hot side of your circuit. If you're doing flux core, that would be on the ground. But in this case, I'm doing MIG. Now you can do it with flux core or MIG, the only difference is gas. So I'm just got it set up, I don't really want to pull out the flux core. This does seem like it'd be more effective for flux core, to be honest, just me thinking about it. I think that's probably what I'm going to use this for, is when I need to do a flux core weld with 240 off of this machine. I do have a 240 machine currently repairing it, that's another story. And there will be a video on that eventually once I get my parts. But anyways, basically I have the lead coming off of the wire drive roller, which is going to be whether I use positive or ground. That's going to correlate with this. And then I am not going to use the ground on this machine. This is just done. You can unbolt it. I'm just going to not use the clamp. All I'm going to use is this. So quick disclaimer. I don't recommend you do this. I'm kind of just doing this for scientific purposes, I suppose, or mostly money-saving purposes. So I don't got to go buy another machine if that one is unfixable. But yeah, exercise caution if you're going to do this. Probably just don't do it. Watch me and see if it works. Yeah, that's about it. I don't want you to electrocute yourself. Mind you, everything is unplugged and turned off while I'm working on this. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and use the ground from the titanium stick welder. I'm just going to call it the stick welder. So stick welder's ground, and I'm going to be using the MIG welder's wire feed gun. And this is my circuit, because remember, this is attached to the positive on the stick welder. I'm using the stick welder's lead, and that's what's going to be giving me the power. All the MIG welder is going to be doing is providing me the wire feed function. All right, that machine's on. Oh boy, let's see. Haven't blown up yet. This machine is on. Okay. That's step one, I guess. So on the wire feed side, the only thing this is going to be doing is controlling my wire speed. So I'm just going to set that to like 40. Now, normally like this one's got hard settings for the voltage. I'm only going to be having an amperage setting on this. So just kind of, you'll have to play with that to figure it out, I imagine, as I'm about to find out, I suppose. But don't worry about what the amperage is on this. This machine is not providing power. It is this one that's providing power. So we're at 85 amps, 66.2 volts, and at 40 on the wire speed. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, that's another thing to note. This is always hot. Your trigger no longer energizes it. It's working. Grounded well enough. I'm that guy from Iron Man. Oops, shit, burned through. Oh, thank God there was a freaking hole under that. I would have welded this thing straight to my table. I think I got it dialed in though. When you're all done, just return the things to where they go. I'm on flux core now, so I need to switch that. Or I'll just switch the wire back. I'll just switch the wire back. But anyways, you can just go right back to normal after you're done with that. It's just a regular 110 machine again. Turns out my theory was actually correct. I'm not really surprised. Like I said, there's no reason that I thought it shouldn't work. I was just curious if it would without breaking either of the machines, and it didn't. They both still work just fine. Now, in this very specific case, I was using a multi-process machine as a stick welder, which makes it kind of pointless because it's got a wire feeder function and a gun and all that. But say you don't have that, say you got your old transformer buzz box machine that you've kind of upgraded out of, but it's still sitting there, and maybe you could only afford a 110 machine, well, you do have an option to hook that up and make it work. So I don't know if AC would work. You probably want to have one of the ones that has DC, but any old AC transformer machine, if you add what is called, I got rid of my transformer machine, so I don't have it anymore, but it's called a full wave bridge rectifier. Basically, you put your AC side in here where it doesn't. It's called a full wave bridge rectifier. You can get them for like probably 30 bucks. This one's rated for 400 amps because it's a welder. You want it to be pretty heavy duty. But you hook up your AC side here and it turns it into a DC side. So you can have a split wire and then add some terminals in the bottom so that you have AC terminals and DC terminals, and your amperage will still work just the same. The vast majority of transformer machines can be converted to also DC like this. And I'm pretty sure if you get the ones that are AC DC, it's this device that makes that happen. So just AC transformer, you rectify it to DC. So that's an option. That's kind of the idea I had. I got rid of my transformer machine, but I was remembering that. I was like, I wonder if that would work. Just idea popped in my head. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It did take a while to get the settings dialed in properly, but I did get it welding pretty good. After messing around with it for a while, honestly. I mean, it took a bit, but once you get that dialed in, I think the final settings I had was 93 amps on the stick welder, and I think I had my wire feeder set right at 50 inches per minute, I think is what that is, 50 inches per minute. That sounds about right, I think, whatever. Anyways, that's what the settings was, pretty high, but the downside to this, unless you have a nicer stick welder, is I can't control the voltage. That's just kind of an auto set thing with this machine. It just kind of figures out where you want it. So it's a lower open circuit than I think you'd normally want, but careful and mindful where you're putting that thing. Just because you're not pulling the trigger doesn't mean it's not energized. I would recommend doing it with flux core over MIG, because that stick out, you do have to play with that a lot, and if you have gas going, I mean, unless you crank that pressure all the way up, you'd probably have issues with the shielding gas actually coating that. So flux core is probably the best application for this, but I mean, yeah, I guess in conclusion, you most certainly can convert a 110 MIG welder into a 240 MIG welder, or wire feed welder anyways. Stick welder is a power source. I guess any old welder is just a big transformer and a power source. But anyways, I hope you guys found this video useful, entertaining, or, you know, curiosity inducing. But if you did, please like and subscribe. And other than that, have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless.